Now, I want to take a moment to examine how Christianity, honestly, its origins, they're pretty queer, and it very much still can be defined as queer, despite its dominance in Western culture. And also, along that train of thought, the definition that I had just attributed to Tonstad for queerness being a state of praxis, that is actually, it's in her book, Queer Theology, but it is attributed to Althus Reed. I hope I said that name right. I probably did not. But anyway, so the idea that queerness is disturbing identities, it's disturbing the norms and any fixed sense of definition. Christianity is honestly, it fits in with that. It's about the transgression of binaries. I mean, the idea that God can be both non-gendered, but also Jesus is a man, but also Jesus is fully divine. Like a lot of the mysteries, quote unquote, in Christianity are about a lack of definition. God is possibly the ultimate unknown and uncategorizable thing out there. And also, Christianity, in theory, is about radical inclusion and love. Jesus said to love your neighbor, to go around to shelter the homeless, to feed the poor, all the people that are marginalized in typical societies. And, you know, it's unfortunate because it really, honestly, used to be very countercultural. Like, there's a reason that Christ's followers were persecuted at that time. And I think the reason that it used to be countercultural and is now fairly normative in many areas is because whenever you have a text, like the Bible, it's very easy to draw whatever interpretations you want from it. And it's like I want to say the Constitution, just in terms of people talk a lot about original intent, but the Constitution was made by a group of men who had very different opinions and views, and they all had to compromise for what was finally written down. And we know the Bible, some people think it's the literal word of God, some people think it was inspired by him, but everything in there is right, but someone physically wrote it down. That's what happened. The Bible did not pop out of nowhere. So if someone wrote it down, and it's been translated into many different languages, you have the original issue of, can there be any concrete intended meaning that's the sole intended meaning? And then you have all the ways that people who either lacking cultural context or having some sort of motive read into the text what they want it to say. So, I mean, this showed up a lot in, again, a reappearing act, where people could use the Bible to justify drinking or be against gay people or, you know, anything they wanted to say. I know Lightsey talked a lot about the reason that Black people, many of them, are still okay with using the Bible as a foundation for their faith, despite quotes condoning slavery, is that you can read out of it what you need. So you can both read out of it support and whatchamacallit, sorry, and opposition to oppression, or you can read out of it, hey, some people deserve not to have rights. Some people, you know, certain sexualities are not appropriate, despite the fact that we've all we read Appalling Bodies, and we know that sexuality was about performance and about social status, not actually about like a defined identity. So nowadays, you know, if you're predominantly white or middle class or things like that, there are systematic incentives to read out of the Bible that you deserve to dominate other people's. So it is normative now, and I'm sorry I've rambled a little bit here, but it very much can be both taken as extremely radical or extremely reactionary. And I think that's also, I'm sure y'all have seen, at least on Twitter, memes or points where people are like, hey, the real Jesus was a leftist. He was against capitalism. He was against oppression. He was not okay with marginalizing people. He sat with the sinners. Whereas more conservative individuals can say, no, he was against all of that. That's a sin. We don't support that here. So Christianity can kind of be anything you want it to be, which I think goes into a little bit of the dying to be normal memorialization we talked about, or just the idea that anything queer can become normalized. It can get inclusion into the box, as it were, and discriminate against whoever's left or has just been removed from power. And it gets into an interesting debate about if we finally... Well, I know we had that discussion with, I want to say, Brentnall, about how someone will always be the outsider or the other in whatever future we envision. And in this case, Christianity, I think, was a queer entity that was made normative.